So picture this. The date is March 23, 1993. It's right around 1:00 a.m. in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I want you to just imagine the Turtle Creek Apartments.
Right.
It's this massive, sprawling, gated community, like 262 units. And it's one of those complexes where the walls are just practically paper thin, you know the type?
Oh, yeah, where you can hear your neighbor's TV through the drywall.
Exactly. You hear their heavy footsteps on the ceiling, or even like their quiet conversations if they're close to the vents. Well, on this particular night, cutting right through that quiet darkness, these horrific screams just erupt from apartment 302A.
God.
Yeah. It's a 19-year-old girl named Carmen Van Huss. And she's screaming, "Get off me!" She's crying. She is frantically banging against the wall, just physically fighting for her life.
And I mean, it's a terrifying scene to just drop you into, but what makes it truly chilling is the duration. Because this isn't a brief, 10-second struggle.
Right, yeah.
This absolute agony, these unmistakable cries of terror, they go on for 30 grueling minutes.
30 minutes?
Yeah. And then the silence returns. And the only sound left is the rhythm of hurried footsteps echoing down the hall, just disappearing into the cold night.
And the neighbors. I mean, the people sleeping literally inches away on the other side of that drywall.
Huh?
Not a single person gets out of bed to knock on her door.
Wow.
Not one person picks up a phone to call 911. The only action taken by anyone in that entire building is a single phone call made to apartment management, just to file a noise complaint.
Which really forces us to confront the psychology of a crowded space. Like, it's a textbook example of the bystander effect, but specifically the diffusion of responsibility. Because when you are one of 262 units, your brain rationalizes the inaction. You tell yourself, someone else will surely call the police. I don't need to get involved.
Right, but when everyone assumes someone else is handling it.
Nobody handles it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that silence from the community didn't just allow a killer to escape. It meant the gruesome reality of what actually happened wouldn't be discovered until the very next day.
Well, welcome to this deep dive. Using the massive stack of case files you've shared with us. I mean, the police reports, the crime scene photos, the court transcripts. Our mission today is to solve a 31-year cold case right alongside the investigators.
It's quite a journey.
It really is. We are tracing a saga marked by a completely botched initial investigation, some mind-numbing bureaucratic ego, an unlikely hero cop, and a scientific breakthrough that literally changed how we look at DNA.
And it's a timeline that demands we question the assumptions we make every single day about the people we live next to, about the justice system, and, how easily human bias can just derail the search for the truth.
Yeah. So that silence from the neighbors, it led directly to the grim morning of March 24th. Carmen's friend Missy realizes Carmen hasn't shown up for her shift at Pizza Hut.
Right, which is unusual for her.
Very. So Missy calls Carmen's father, James, and he immediately heads over to the Turtle Creek Apartments to check on her. But when James arrives at apartment 302A, the first thing greeting him is a handwritten note tacked to the door from apartment management.
And it's a scolding note.
Yeah, if you can believe it.
Management is officially reprimanding his daughter for being too loud the night before, literally demanding she be more considerate of her neighbors.
It's just sickening to think about. So James opens the door, which is completely unlocked, by the way, and he steps into a totally ransacked studio apartment. Tables are knocked over, clothes are thrown everywhere, and Carmen is lying dead on the floor.
God.
The level of brutality here is, it's difficult to even process. She suffered 60 stab wounds. Head, face, body, genitalia. The violence was so extreme that the wounds to her head had actually penetrated her skull.
Which is, well, when criminal profilers look at 60 stab wounds, they see overkill.
Right.
That kind of physical exertion, it requires immense sustained rage. Now, the detectives processing the scene, they noted the wounds were consistent with something small and pointed, like maybe a pocket knife or a screwdriver.
But they never found it.
No, the weapon was entirely gone. Blood was smeared in the kitchen, splattered on the walls. Yet, crucially, there was absolutely no sign of forced entry.
Okay, let's unpack this. To understand why the police investigation went in the direction it did, we really have to look closely at who Carmen was. She was 19, and she was basically living in two completely different worlds.
Yeah, it's a complex dynamic.
Right, like an actor trying on different masks. Because when she was 3, her biological parents sent her to live with her aunt and uncle, the Schatz, because they were really struggling financially.
And the Schatz were a large, strict, Very loving Catholic family. They lived a very by-the-book lifestyle, but they eventually moved to Indiana so Carmen could maintain a relationship with her biological dad, James.
Right, and James lived on the exact opposite end of the spectrum. He had substance use issues and lived a much more transient, edgy lifestyle.
The Carmen just idolized him.
She did. She wanted his approval just as much as she wanted her strict adoptive family's approval. So she straddled these two contrasting environments. Around her dad, she'd, smoke, drink, hang out with the punk rock and skater crowds. But around the shots, she really tried to fit the mold of the dutiful Catholic daughter.
And the sad part is, at the time of her death, she was actually managing to pull all these chaotic threads together.
Yeah, she really was getting her life together.
She was holding down her job at Pizza Hut, maintaining her first apartment, she was in a steady relationship, and she was taking classes at the Heron School of Art and Design.
But of course, when the police walked into that apartment, they didn't see the aspiring art student, did they?
No, they did not. They saw the edgy friends, the skaters, the recreational drug use. They just saw the lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's a cognitive bias we see all too often in early forensics. Investigators looked at her fragmented lifestyle and instantly cast judgment. They categorized her whole social circle as high risk.
Right.
And because there was no forced entry, and because of the sheer rage of the overkill, they formed this rigid theory. They decided Carmen was killed by an intimate partner from her edgy social circle.
And they tried to fit the evidence to their theory rather than letting the evidence build the theory. Which is, think about how often we all do that in our daily lives. We see who someone hangs out with or how they dress, and we just make a snap judgment about their entire character.
We all do it.
But the difference is, when homicide detectives do it, a killer walks free. Because the police were so laser-focused on her lifestyle, they had to rebuild her final evening, March 22nd, literally minute by minute, to find this hypothetical, intimate killer.
So they track her movements. She spent that evening visiting her grandmother in the hospital with her dad. She drops her dad off around 9:30 p.m. He actually asks her to stay the night, but she tells him she has to go home to wash her Pizza Hut uniform for work the next day.
And the drive takes about 30 minutes. We know she makes it home because at 9:49 p.m., she has a phone call with her boyfriend, Rob, who is actually living out of state in Arizona at the time.
Right.
During that call, she casually mentions to Rob that she ran into an old friend that night, but she couldn't remember his name. Now, a massive gap in the timeline emerges right here. She told her dad she needed to wash her uniform, but her studio apartment didn't have a washer and dryer.
She had to use the communal laundry room down the hall.
Right.
And if we look at the timeline, her call with Rob lasted 32 minutes, ending around 10:02 p.m. It is highly probable she headed down to that laundry room right after hanging up. And yet there is no record in the files of police ever thoroughly checking that laundry room or even verifying if her uniform was actually in the wash.
Which is wild. How does a detective just ignore the laundry room when it's the stated reason she went home?
Institutional tunnel vision. They were already looking for a punk rock boyfriend or a drug associate. They weren't looking for a crime of opportunity in a communal space.
Wow.
And that blind spot meant they completely ignored what happened next. By 11:00 p.m., several neighbors report hearing Carmen walking up the stairs, laughing and talking casually with a man.
And they go inside her apartment. Detectives later find fast food cups, maybe from Subway, and beer bottles on her table. This means the man she was laughing with at 11 p.m. was almost certainly the same man who brutally attacked her 2 hours later at 1 a.m.
But the shared meal just reinforced the police's theory of an intimate partner. So they launched this massive wild goose chase, pulling in literally everyone she knew.
Yeah, they start with the boyfriend, Rob, but call logs and witnesses prove his rock-solid alibi. He was definitely in Arizona.
Yep. Oh.
So then they pivot to an ex-boyfriend, Peter. And this part, it reads like a bizarre movie plot. Peter had previously stolen Carmen's car. When she finally got it back, she found a gift bag inside with Beastie Boys concert tickets that Peter had bought for another girl.
Right.
So as revenge, Carmen took the tickets and went to the concert herself.
It sounds incredibly petty, but Peter was furious. He had actually been going around town openly threatening to get revenge on Carmen. So the police hear this and think, we got him. A brutal 60 stab wound murder over Beastie Boys tickets.
But they verify his whereabouts, and Peter has a flawless alibi, proving he was in San Francisco at the time of the murder.
Yeah.
I just can't believe they cast the net so wide that they even brought in her female friend, Missy. And the only reason they interrogated Missy was because she accidentally left a pack of cigarettes in Carmen's car with the word death scrawled on it.
I know. Missy had to sit in an interrogation room and explain that she wrote death on the pack as a self-reminder to quit smoking because her boyfriend hated the habit.
Oh my God.
Right. What's fascinating here is how investigators got tunnel vision. It's a dark coincidence, but it perfectly illustrates how unfocused the police were. By assuming the killer must be a close, intimate partner, they completely ignored the physical clues of proximity.
Right, and with all her known associates officially cleared, the leads just evaporate. The case goes completely cold for 20 years.
2 decades.
2 decades of Carmen's family calling the police precinct every single year, only to be given the runaround. The file is on my desk, but we have nothing new. It really took a total outsider stepping in to finally shake up the system. Enter Sergeant Bill Carter in 2013.
And Bill Carter is a crucial piece of this puzzle. He was working in nuisance abatement for the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. His daily job was investigating community disturbances.
Like noise complaints.
Exactly. Things like underage drinking parties or animal cruelty complaints. He had absolutely zero homicide training, no cold case experience whatsoever.
So how does a guy writing tickets for loud parties end up with a 20-year-old murder file?
Well, another officer who actually went to high school with Carmen practically begged Carter to look into the case. Carter had built a reputation in the department as a guy with a brilliant, analytical mind who was willing to help out behind the scenes. He had a deep sense of empathy. So on his own time, Carter dives in. He digitizes this massive, chaotic paper file. And he realizes that despite it being 2013, the physical DNA evidence from the crime scene had never been fully utilized.
So Carter pushes the department for testing on a bloody white paper bag found in Carmen's kitchen trash can, and on semen swabs collected during the autopsy.
And it works.
It does. The lab is actually able to develop a partial male profile and a full profile from the blood. And over the next year, Carter uses this profile to systematically eliminate over 40 men, including all those former suspects.
Which is a massive step forward. But then in 2015, they hit a wall. The city pays $1,600 for further, more advanced DNA testing. The results come back, and the lab tells Carter, we have a problem. The killer is a European female.
But European female? I mean, how does a lab make a mistake that massive?
It comes down to how mixed DNA samples were handled at the time. The sample contained both the killer's DNA and Carmen's DNA. It's a lot like trying to clean up a messy audio recording where 2 people are talking at once. You want the software to isolate the background whisper, but instead it accidentally enhances the main speaker. The lab's extraction process accidentally isolated Carmen's own DNA instead of the killer's. A human error, but an incredibly costly one.
Right. And when Carter asks the department to pay for a new test to fix the error, the city flat out refuses. They tell him they will not authorize the funds. End of story.
Unbelievable.
But Carter doesn't accept that. He decides to crowdfund the test himself. He sets up a GoFundMe page, explains the situation to the public, and in just 7 hours, the community rallies and raises over $1,200. He only needed about $1,000 for the test.
And logically, you would think the police department would be thrilled.
You'd think.
You have an officer showing incredible initiative, finding private funding without using a dime of taxpayer dollars, all to catch a brutal murderer.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because I still get genuinely angry reading what happened next. IMPD forces Carter to return every single dime of the GoFundMe money to the donors.
Right.
Then they slap him with a 10-day suspension without pay.
Wow.
They remove him from the case entirely and explicitly tell him to stay in his lane and let the cold case squad do their job. I mean, it's like punishing a volunteer firefighter for bringing his own water to a burning house just because he wasn't wearing the right uniform. Why prioritize fragile egos over catching a murderer?
It exposes the dark underbelly of institutional bureaucracy. In large organizations, protecting turf and hierarchy often becomes more important than actually achieving the mission.
Right.
The department's leadership felt publicly embarrassed that a nuisance abatement officer had to beg for money online to do their job. To them, Carter broke the chain of command. They claimed it was about standard operating procedures, but it was really about bruised egos.
Yeah.
Carter, a man who had only taken 4 hours of sick leave in his entire career, was punished for caring too much.
It's just infuriating. Thankfully, though, Carmen's family refuses to take this lying down. They launch a public petition, gathering over 500 signatures demanding Carter be reinstated on the case.
Good for them.
Yeah, and the public pressure actually forces the department to quietly walk back the removal. They keep Carter in the game, but sort of from the sidelines. His hands are tied financially until the technology finally catches up to his dedication.
And that technological leap finally arrives in 2018. A company called Parabon Nanolabs performs a genetic snapshot on the killer's DNA. This is a process that predicts physical traits from genetic material, and it reveals that the suspect is a black male.
Which immediately narrows the massive suspect pool.
Exactly. Then in 2020, a nonprofit organization called Season of Justice steps in and provides a grant.
They fund 15 hours of intense genetic genealogy research. And by June of 2023, Carter, who has now actually been promoted to captain, and an IMPD analyst named Meera Patel get a hit.
A huge hit.
A great-niece, once removed, had uploaded her DNA to 23andMe. Now, I understand the basic concept, but how exactly does a great-niece's spit in a plastic tube lead police to a killer from 30 years ago?
It's essentially a massive game of biological connect the dots.
Yeah.
When you submit your DNA to a site like 23andMe, the system measures shared segments of DNA called centimorgans.
Okay.
The more centimorgans you share with someone, the closer the relative. Investigators take the killer's DNA from the crime scene and upload it to a public database. They get a distant match, in this case, that great niece, once removed.
So they have a distant relative, but they don't know who the killer is yet.
Right. From there, genealogists build the family tree backward. They use public records, census data, obituaries to trace that great niece's family line all the way back to her great-grandparents.
Wow.
Once they find those common ancestors, they reverse direction. They build the tree forward, mapping out every single male descendant of those great-grandparents. They cross-reference the list of men against the Parabon snapshot looking for black males, and then look for anyone who is living in Indianapolis in 1993.
It just strips away all the human bias, all the assumptions about Carmen's, edgy lifestyle or her complex family dynamics. It just looks at the math.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this shows the sheer power of genetic genealogy to strip away human bias and assumptions, leading straight to the stark, irrefutable truth of physical proximity.
Because that mathematical truth points directly to a man named Dana Shepard. And the jaw-dropping twist here is that in 1993, Dana Shepard was a 20-year-old kid who lived in the exact same apartment complex as Carmen. In fact, his unit was a mere 30-second walk from hers.
They were connected by that very same communal laundry room. Suddenly, the missing pieces of that 2-hour window snap into place. The physical proximity is undeniable. It is highly probable they bumped into each other in that laundry room around 10:20 p.m. He was young, he lived in her building. She likely felt he was safe.
Yeah.
She invites him up, they have a beer, and then the unthinkable happens.
Fast forward to February 15th, 2024. Police track Dana Shepard down. He's no longer a 20-year-old kid. He's working as a university custodian in Missouri.
Right.
He has a mostly nonviolent record, save for a 1996 battery charge. Police serve him a warrant to swab his DNA. The official records actually note that as he reads the warrant, he is visibly shaking.
Because he knew instantly why they were there. I mean, for 31 years, he had lived a completely normal life. He got married, had kids, became a grandfather, all while Carmen's family suffered in agonizing limbo.
Yeah.
6 months after they take that swab, the lab confirms the match. The DNA is undeniably his. He is arrested and charged with murder and rape.
It brings us to the present day, 2026. After a 31-year nightmare, you expect this grand climax in a courtroom, right? A dramatic trial where the truth is finally laid bare for the family. But on January 23, 2026, just days before the jury selection is set to begin, Dana Shepard takes a plea deal.
He pleads guilty to 1 count of murder and receives a 45-year sentence. But as part of the deal, the rape and second murder charges are dropped. It is an incredibly anticlimactic end to a 3-decade fight for justice.
So what does this all mean? For Carmen's family, it's an agonizing reality. Because Dana took a plea, he never has to take the stand. He never has to look the family in the eye, and he never has to explain his actions. They will never truly know what happened during those final 2 hours between the laughter in the hallway and the screams in the dark.
Justice is served in the eyes of the law, but the closure is terribly incomplete. However, out of this immense pain, there is a triumphant silver lining that has actually changed the landscape of justice in Indiana forever.
Yeah, in March 2026, the governor signed Carmen's Law, which was championed relentlessly by her sister Pam. This law creates a formal legal process for families to privately fund advanced DNA testing for cold cases that are older than 5 years.
It ensures that no other family and no other dedicated officer like Bill Carter will ever have to fight the system just to pay for a DNA test. It removes the very bureaucratic roadblocks that held Carmen's case hostage for years.
We started this deep dive in a dark, thin-walled apartment in 1993, listening to a young woman cry for help while the world ignored her. We waded through decades of police tunnel vision and bureaucratic absurdity, all the way to a historic forensic victory in 2026 that actually changed state law.
It really proves that while technology and genetic genealogy are incredible tools, it is human perseverance, the love of a sister, the stubbornness of a nuisance abatement officer that actually drives justice forward.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today. Think back to those 30 minutes of terrifying screams in 1993. The neighbors just rolled over in their beds, annoyed by the noise, assuming it was someone else's problem. Today, we live in a world where we are more digitally connected than ever before. We see everything happening globally on our screens. But are we actually more isolated from the people right on the other side of our physical walls? How many calls for help in our own communities are we tuning out as mere noise? Take a moment today to reflect on your own surroundings, on the walls you share with the world, and ask yourself, if the call came tonight, would you be the one to listen?